Very quickly, I met Chris 10 years ago. There was this guy sitting on a big round table at a kick-off type event in a January. He was next to me. The next thing I know, he's jumped up and he's doing the presentation at the thing. I was like, my God, I was next to a star. And I was impressed by him, and that cemented me on the career. So Chris, thank you. You probably didn't realise the impact you had. It makes a massive impact. So he's, in his own words, he's a dad to 4 wonderful children. He's a grand dude to 5 wonderful grandchildren. He joined UW in June 2005. He is now, as we've said, an SGL 1-star. He is an SGL car owner, is a 200 plus club customer gatherer, and he has, get this, 33,231 group customers. That's not bad. He has had thousands of no's. And he tells us that he has made loads of mistakes on his journey, but he's learnt from them. And that is what he's going to talk to us tonight about. So give it up to the amazing Chris Williams.
Thank you, Nick. Cheers, I'll put that there. Wow, what an introduction. So it is lovely to be in Cambridge, but I come from Birmingham, so it's lovely to be anywhere when you come from Birmingham. I wanted to thank the other speakers. I've made loads of notes. One of the things that I do, I like to take notes because it's scientifically proven that you can read them the next day. So I find that really, really useful. And Lorna mentioned networking, and I just thought, before I tell you a little bit more about me and share some of the mistakes that I've made, there's a guy called Ed Ludbrook who is a network marketing trainer, and I went to a seminar with him once, and he talked about how the British are not the most positive people in the world, and Ed goes all around the world doing training, and he says, and it all starts when people greet each other. And it just triggered a thought, you know, when we go networking, it's really, really important. The first words that come out of your mouth, they should be really positive. And Ed was from New Zealand, and he said, you know, what's that all about? You know, you meet a Brit and you say, how are you? And they say, not too bad. And he goes, does that mean you're half bloody dead? Or what does that mean? Right? Or they actually tell you how they are, which nobody really wants to know. So he got us doing a little bit of exercise, and he says, what I want you to think about is what is your greeting? Because that makes a really, really big impact. Because depending on what you say at that point when you meet somebody, that's going to determine whether they want to listen to what you've got to say next. So I thought we could have a little practice. So what I want to, in a minute, when I say 3, but don't do it yet, I want you to greet 3 people. And I want you to come up with a fantastic greeting. Now, anybody who knows me, when they ask me how I am, I always say, I'm absolutely fabulous. And it doesn't matter whether I am or not, I am. And one of the things, if you have a positive greeting, if I keep saying I'm absolutely fabulous to everybody I meet, what do I start feeling? Absolutely fabulous. Now, if you're a little bit shy and reserved, because I'm not, right, I don't want you to be going, I'm feeling so good I could be twins. That's no good. I want you to find a positive greeting that just suits your personality. Maybe you want to ask a little bit of feedback as well when you've done your greeting. So after 3, all right, I want you to just get up, just greet 3 people really, really positively, okay? 1, 2, 3, go for it. Right, I shouldn't have, do you ever get that feeling you shouldn't have done something? Do you ever get that feeling? Oh, you lose everybody. Right, that's you some other time. So, thank you. Did anybody hear a really great greeting? What was that? I'm wonderful. Was that lots of wonderfuls? That's very good.
Jimmy, mate. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you? Top of the world. Top of the world. We like the top of the world. So, anyway, you get the idea. Now, I've been introduced as a bit of a superstar, but I want to share with you, I'm really, really not. But I'm excited today because it is my anniversary in this business. Because it is exactly 18 years, 3 months and 11 days since I've been doing this. How cool is that? And why do I remember that date? I'll give you a little bit of my backstory. So I remember that date because I used to run a business. Well, I was an apprentice, an engineering apprentice, but I got into sales and I ended up running my own business. I had 25 employees. I had a turnover of over 4 million. We had double-digit profitability. And I used to work for the most demanding boss in the world, which was me, 80 to 100 hours a week. Anybody ever had that feeling? And I'll tell you the truth now, I let that business steal my life. In fact, I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Has anybody ever read that? And after I read that, I suddenly realised I didn't own a business, I owned a job. And I'm sure Lorna comes across a lot of people just like that. So what happened to me was then, I was already that business because I was working so hard and so long, that cost me my marriage. So Karen, who's my business partner in this business, we're great buddies, but we just work together now. We're not together in that way. But I'm skiing with my daughter, and I think in life it's really important to have these light bulb moments, isn't it? I'm skiing with my daughter, who's got children. And who remembers when you first have them, you can hold them in one arm like this? So I'm skiing with my daughter, and Daisy, I could just, move her about like this. Anyway, in no time at all, she's 15 years old, and we're in Austria, and she's beating me down the hill. And I looked at her, and I just said, where the F have I been? 15 years, and I was building a business, and I claimed it was for my family, but it was really for my ego. And I made a phone call that day, and I phoned my ex-wife up, Karen, and I said, as soon as I get back, we're going to sell what we can of that business. I hadn't employed an action coach. I could have sold it for a lot more if I had, but we sold it for a little bit. We ran the rest up, and I said, I'll never, ever, ever get on a plane again unless it's for pleasure, because I used to travel a lot globally. And so I did the next smartest thing. I thought, I'm not going to keep exchanging my time for money. I need to find something else. So I became a business consultant and a business coach, and I was still exchanging my time for money. And then I bought a coaching franchise. I'm still exchanging my time for money. But I went to a network event. And at that network event, I met a guy, and he was living 3 weeks out of every month with his family, and he only worked 1 week a month. He's living in the south of France. If you met somebody like that, would you want to know what they did? Well, that was me. And at first I thought, well, I'm not that clever. I've got no A-levels. I come from Birmingham. What is it that, I'm sure I can't do what they do. And I found out that he used to be a bricklayer, and then he was a police officer, and his name was Jimmy Chapman. Has anybody ever met Jimmy Chapman? Right? And it was utility warehouse. So I joined this business for more time. I didn't join this business because I was, switched on by electricity, or I found mobile phones exciting. I joined this business to get some free time. And the reason I remember that day is it's such a powerful day for me and my family, because Utility Warehouse has given me and my family my life back. And what I like to do is just really emphasise the team building part of our business. Would that be okay? Because I believe we do two things. We help people save money, but I do believe we help people get a better life. I genuinely believe that we help people get a better life, because there's no greater feeling than having that complete time freedom. So would it be okay if I just share a few mistakes that I've made, but with the real focus on team? Now, Nick introduced me as a bit of a superstar. I worked my stats out. So I said I've been involved in the business 18 years, 3 months and 11 days. And in that time, I've introduced 270 people into this business, which is 1.5 people a month, right? I don't know how I've managed 1.5 people a month. But I emphasise that because it's not about me. It's about me introducing people who know people who know people. And, in the room, Sue, lovely Sue, I never knew Sue when I joined this business. We got to know each other through the business. Sue knows Lorna, and so that thing goes on. So team building for me has been an absolute key. But I have made a few mistakes, and I thought I'll just share with you a few of those. Lorna covered a few of them. Talking too much. Has anybody ever done that? And for those of you that are taking notes, I was really fascinated by this little stat. A lot of people say, what should I say to somebody? And I say, how about just being a great listener? Because you know what? Most people in the world just want a really good listening to. And I found this fascinating. Do you know if you jumble the words, you know, silent, the word, if you jumble the words up, it turns into listen. How cool is that? That's really good. Anyway, so that was one of the things I used to talk too much. I'm sure nobody else in the room does that. One of the things, and Laura mentioned it, I used to have too high expectations. So I want to get a judge of the room. Does anybody got a little bit frustrated with this business and had too high expectations? Yeah? So do you want to know how I've overcome my challenge with high expectations? I think it's very, very natural, because when you first start, I'll never forget when we first used to have training. And I'm sitting in a training room, and you used to sit around like a horseshoe shape. And at the end of the training, the trainers would go, right, so in the next week, how many customers are you going to go and get? And the first person would go, oh, 2. And they go, oh, everybody 2, great. And the next person, of course, would go, well, I'll be doing 3 then. And then by the time it got round to me, it's like, well, 20? You know, who wouldn't want to save money? I mean, it's a complete no-brainer, isn't it? And who wouldn't want to make money? I mean, like, what are we doing wrong? So the first person I went to see was my mother. Because you're supposed to start with your family, aren't you? And I told my mum, you know, I'm doing this utility warehouse thing. Would you be a customer? No. Has anybody ever had their mum say that? Yeah. I mean, what I will say about my mother, she's rather a negative person, actually. You know how people have a half glass, half full? My mum hasn't even got a glass. That's it. So she never became a customer, okay? And one of the challenges I think we have is we have these peaks and troughs. So I finished my training and I was on a massive high and I was all excited. And then I went to see my mum and I was all depressed again. And then I went to see somebody else and they said they'd become a customer. It was a stepbrother, so I was all excited again. And then I went to the pub to see my mates and tell them all about this wonderful utility warehouse business. Has anybody ever done that? And I'm going to have a Mini, and I'm going to have the Porsche, and we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Who wants to sign up first? You know, couldn't be bothered to sign up, Chris. I haven't even got the time. And we used to have a form in those days. So then I'm down again. So one of the things about managing our expectations is what you'll notice with all leaders is they're not on this, it's not a merry-go-round, is it? What is it when it goes up and down like that? It's a roller coaster. Is anybody feeling they've ever been on that roller coaster? So it's about trying to level our expectations out. Now, what's really, really important, though, is it's got to be like a real internal decision. And who knows Big Al? He's a network marketing trainer, and he talks about the micro facial expressions that we have going on in our face. So it's not enough to pretend. You have to really, 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 really condition your mind. You know that you can put up with the nose and all the other things. And I said I had thousands. So I've come up with a little bit of an affirmation that really, really helps me. Would you like me to share it with you? So in short, it's DGAS, right? It didn't say DGAS, right? DGAS. Do you want to know what it stands for? Don't give a shit, all right? So my little affirmation I say to myself is, I don't give a shit, but I care just a little bit. Is that okay? And by having that in my mind, and I'm absolutely serious, right? I don't concern myself with an outcome of a presentation because I don't give a shit. I just care a little bit. And the thing is, because I don't, it shows in my facial expressions, because if you do present to somebody and all the people are in the room, which is a really, really good point, and you make them some savings, has anybody done this? And you save them money and they still say no, right? Now, if you do give a shit, right, it's really hard to ask for referrals because you've got to go, oh, that's all right then. I'm not, I'm cool, Do you know anybody? You just get so annoyed, don't you? So wound up, or at least I did. But if you really, really don't care about the outcome, it does leave you free to ask the next follow-up question, or that's absolutely fine. Really appreciate you taking the time. Now, who would like to do a test and find out whether you do give a shit or not? Anybody would like to know what the test is? Right. So how many car drivers have we got in the room? Okay. So, and I've been practicing this on myself for years. I study a philosophy called Stoicism, and one of the fundamental things is not to give a shit really, but to care a little bit and just control your emotions. So, have you ever been driving your car and there's a car parked on your side of the road and you've pulled over to let the other driver come past? Has anybody ever done that? Put your hand up if you had, right? Have you ever had anybody not thank you? Yeah. How does it feel? How does it feel? You give a shit, right? So here's a little lesson. When you can get to that point in life where you don't give a shit, this is when you can build a massive business. And I'm serious, because what I want you to think about is their mother may have just died. There might be a sick child lying on the back seat. They're dashing to hospital. They may have had some terrible news. They may have been diagnosed with a serious illness. Something could be going on in their life, and we make that assumption, the miserable gits didn't even thank me. And I think we do that in our utility warehouse business. We make an assumption. And Big Al taught me a great story to manage our expectations when we're starting our utility warehouse business out. So I'm going to give him the credit for the story, but has anybody heard the shoe shop story? So this is great for new partners. I want you to imagine when you're starting your utility warehouse business, or when you're helping somebody start their business, think of it as opening a shoe shop, all right? So you're opening a shoe shop, and would you agree that a shoe shop would cost a lot more from an investment point of view than a utility warehouse business? Is that a fair statement? You've got to pay for the shop fitting, you've got to commit to a lease, you've got some stock to put in there, and you've got all your shoes in there, and the doors open and it's your first day. Can you just visualise what this feels like? And somebody walks into your shoe shop, right? Now, out of interest, when you go to a shoe shop and the sales assistant comes up to you and says, "Can I help you?" What do you automatically say? No. No, thank you. Even though you might be in a rush, you want to know where those size 8s are, automatically you go, "No, thank you." That's because you've been pestered all your life by shoe salespeople, right? And that's your automatic response. Now, but is it a fair statement to say that most people, I used to say everybody in the UK wears shoes, and then somebody says, "Babies don't." So I said, all right, most people, dogs don't. Most people in the UK wear shoes. Is that a fair statement? And is it also a fair statement that there's a chance that the timing wasn't right for that person to buy a pair of shoes right there and then? Would that be a fair statement? Would it also be right that if we didn't upset that person, they might come back and buy some shoes off us? Is that a fair statement? And that's the way I want you to think about it, because here's another thing that I talk about, and I'm just from Birmingham, so I'm a very simple person. So I have another little thing that I say to people, and that is our job is just not to piss people off. And I'm serious, because if you share something with somebody and the timing doesn't happen to be right for them, then don't get into an argument. In the old days, I certainly thought it, well, you must be an idiot, not to do this. And I think I may have actually said it in some cases. Laura came up with a great thing. I need to think about it. I used to say, "What with?" That's not a very good response, is it? So you grow up, you grow up in this business, don't you? So I grew up, and so that's my other tip, because this is what I learned. This is another big mistake that I made. I didn't keep good records, right? So who keeps good records? Who's better than me? Who keeps a no for now list, a yes for later list, or whatever? Who's using the planner out of interest? Not many people. I'm trying to get that changed, because it's a big mistake that I made. So what I used to think is I'd show people the opportunity, I'd show them the customer proposition. If they said no, I thought, well, you're stupid, I'll move on, and that's it. I'm never going to speak to you again. Sod you, right? But I went to a financial seminar, and I was taking notes, like I took notes today, and this guy that stood up and spoke was a mortgage advisor. and this is another big tip, he said, the minute I found out that I didn't sell mortgages, I helped people through a life-changing event. He says, I became one of the most successful mortgage advisors in this network, because he explained that in the UK, most people in the UK, every 4 years, will have a life-changing event happen to them. Now, a life-changing event is being made redundant. It's having a brand new baby. It's being a grandparent. It's moving home. It's being diagnosed with a serious illness. It might be getting a new job. It might be becoming disabled, having an accident, selling your house, getting a divorce. Now, I don't need anybody to put their hand up, but have you personally, or somebody you know, experienced a life-changing event in the last 4 years? Has anybody experienced that? Yeah, it's called COVID. Right, that's happened to everybody, hasn't it? And what you will notice is that changes people's perceptions. So the other thing that's really important to recognise is the timing isn't always the right timing for somebody to join your business. But if you keep really, really good records, at some point, in my opinion, they will join your business. And I honestly believe that. It's just that the time I met them, they didn't want that pair of shoes. The timing wasn't right. But their circumstances could change. And that has happened to me many, many times. In fact, my record, do you want to know my record is for sponsoring a business partner? 16 years after I showed them the business opportunity, they joined. Right? So if you ever sit there thinking, I'm not very good at that, 16 years before somebody joined. I'll tell you his background. His name's Jim. He's a personal trainer. I met him. The gym was above a coffee shop. Now, what I used to do when I first joined is try and get the personal trainers, because it's really, being a personal trainer is mad, isn't it? Because you can't do it until your old age, and you're exchanging your time for money, and why would you want to do that, you know? So I used to present to them with a presenter in the gym, you know, whatever they were doing, I'd be there, you know, you should be doing this. But I did get Jim to come down for a coffee, and he came down for a coffee. I showed him the opportunity. It wasn't for him. In fact, has anybody come across somebody that you just get that feeling they think it's below them? Have you had that? So this opportunity was below Jim. Well, I kept in touch with Jim. I gave him the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. He started asking me, what's this passive income thing? And we just kept that relationship going. And then what happened was two things: lockdown, and he broke his arm. Now, when you're in lockdown and you've got a broken arm, personal training is not that, you know, that's a little bit challenging. It's like being a one-armed hairdresser, isn't it? That's another one, right? So Jim comes to me, you know that utility warehouse thing you've talked to me about in the past? Yeah, I think the timing's right. Because the other thing, Jim was 30 when I first told him. He's now 45 and thinking about his future and his pension. So I want you to think about this as a long-term strategy. I want you to think about, we're offering somebody a life-changing option, but it's an option that people can take now, they can take later, or they can take never. Does that make sense? So please do keep really, really good notes. Records, I don't mind how you do it, and just make sure you go back to everybody, because I remember a guy who was, he was a DJ. He came to B&I, and he had this business idea. I'll never forget it. And his business idea was to get people to record their own eulogy. Now, I've found out from will writers that only about 40% of the UK want to even write a will. Nobody wants to think about dying. And to have yourself filmed, like talking about your looming death, you know, wasn't a great business opportunity as far as I was concerned. So, of course, Chris got him to a business opportunity presentation, showed him that, but the timing wasn't right. And I used to just phone up, and I just keep records every 6 months. Bob, and I always say, you probably don't remember me. I always say that. You probably don't remember me. We had a conversation about a business opportunity. I recognised at the time the timing wasn't right. Has anything changed? I used to make that phone call every 6 months. I only got the answer machine message for 3 years, until one day he rang me back and he said, Chris, thank you for calling. I've just got divorced. I'm couch surfing on my mate's sofa. How soon can we get together? So keep good records. Is that okay? The other thing is, how am I doing for time? I'll tell you one last story. Don't prejudge. Has anybody ever prejudged anybody? So I prejudged somebody. I do make a list. I made a list, and I used to have a guy work for me. His name was Gary Smith. Now, he was brilliant, the best salesperson I've ever come across. But try and find Gary Smith on Facebook and LinkedIn. I mean, that's like, you know, it's just like impossible, isn't it, right? But believe it or not, serendipity, Gary Smith reached out to me, and he wrote me a message, said, "Are you that reprobate Chris Williams that I used to know?" So, of course, I said I didn't know who that was, but I'm Chris Williams. Anyway, so Gary and I get together, and I showed him the business, and he joined the business. I'll never forget it. He lived near Runcorn at the Runcorn Business Opportunity. And I sat down with him, and he got a new wife by now. I think he's on his third. And I said, "What about your wife, Fran?" He said, "She'd never want to do it." I said, "Oh, why is that?" "Well, she is a top surgeon at the Liverpool Teaching Hospital. In fact, she specialises in bowel cancer surgery. She gets paid, you know, £140,000 a year. She wouldn't be interested." So I said, "Fair enough." You know, sounds all right to me. So Gary was a salesperson. Now, again, Lorna made a great point, because what did Gary do with his utility warehouse business? He sold, and he didn't do very well, actually. But I'm noticing that he's put his wife, Fran, onto the partner position. And Fran's doing great. And Fran's getting the customers in, and Fran's doing this. And I remember going up to Runcorn, and I had the opportunity just to sit and talk with Fran. And I said, "Fran, what's going on? You're a top bowel cancer surgeon. Why? You know, what's made you do it?" She said, "Chris," she said, "when I joined the NHS, I was told that I'd only have to work until I was 55, and then I could retire on a full salary pension. But they changed the rules, and now I've got to work till I'm 68, and I'm only going to get an average salary pension. Let me tell you, that makes a huge difference if you're a consultant surgeon, to be averaging what you got paid as a junior doctor." And she said, "Chris, I want those 13 years back. I don't want to be driving through the middle of the night country lanes to carry out a life-saving operation at 68 years old." And she described what it takes to do the bowel cancer operation. But I've got to tell you this funny story, because she joined BNI. Now, in BNI, you're supposed to just represent, and BNI, if you don't know what it is, it's a network group that you go to. You're supposed to represent your main occupation. So Fran decides not to tell anybody that she's a surgeon. She just comes in and she's the utility warehouse lady. You know, she's a lovely lady. I'm the utility warehouse lady. And has anybody noticed that I have quite a laugh with it? You know, people ask me what I do. I say, "Have you heard of utility warehouse?" "Oh, I've heard of utility." They've all heard of utility warehouse. So Fran's the utility warehouse lady in her chapter, and she's doing, you know, she's building relationships. She's doing well. She's talking to everybody. Everyone's getting to know her, and she's probably been there for about 4 months. And the one Saturday morning, she's doing her rounds at the Liverpool Teaching Hospital, right? And lying in the bed on her round is a guy that she's going to operate on, because he's got appendicitis. He's got emergency appendicitis, and it's the roofer from her BNI. So I want you to picture this story. There's Fran, and she's actually, you know, a real top surgeon. So they have people following her around, you know, carrying a flip chart for her, doing all of that. She walks up with the old stethoscope. "Right, Bob, don't you worry. I'll have that whipped out in no time. You won't even notice the difference." This guy, she said, went absolutely white. So there you are. Never prejudged, because even bowel cancer surgeons like to get involved in this business. So I'm conscious of time. We've got 6 minutes. I've made loads of mistakes, guys. I've shared just a couple of those for you. Has anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask me? Now, if they're don't ask me about customers. Don't ask me anything technical. It's all right. But anything else? Have we got one over there? Yeah.
Yeah, Chris. If you were to start today, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently, or what would you do?
I'd have kept that list. I have blown out, because you know when you first start, how excited were you? I was so excited. I mean, I just saw this. I saw this vision. I had dinner with Steph Longworth. Who knows Steph Longworth, the National Network leader? This was me, but Steph put it into words. And he says, "I'm partnered with the British PLC. We've got celebrity endorsements. We work in partnership with all the major high street retailers. And what I do is I'm building a distribution network for essential services. How cool does that sound? And that was me. That was how I used to speak to people. But then if they said no, I'd just go, sod you. So keep good notes. That's my biggest mistake, because, you know, my record, if I've been in 18 years, I'd have had people joining. In fact, I think Jim was probably when I first started keeping records. So I've lost 2 years worth of people. Any other questions?
Have you always been consistent the whole way through?
No. Absolutely not. I'm not going to be one of these people that stand up here and say, I've worked like a dog. I've still got my coaching franchise. I've done it. When I say not consistent, if you average it out, I've done 10 hours a week. 10 hours a week. It's always on my mind, but, and never ever beat yourself up either. We were talking the other day about, don't think about how many years you've been in, think of how many flying hours you've done. Because I've been in that period of time, but I've absolutely not done, I think we work on average 2,000 hours a year, would that be right? Times 18 years, whatever that is, I haven't done that. I've done it 10 hours a week. So I don't think you have to be consistent, but my big tip is just never, ever, 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 ever give up. That's all. Because life gets in the way, and that's okay. Because that's what this business is about, just gives you that opportunity to jump back in. It's not easy to jump back in. If some of you know my story, after 6 years in this business, I had 2 holidays in 1 year, both of them 6 months long. I'm serious. After 6 years working it 10 hours a week part-time, it overtook the income I was getting from a franchise. A very, very close friend of mine passed away. And I'll tell you this story because I think it's really important, because we don't know what's around the corner. In fact, Chris was working with an action coach. He was a property developer and had 70 properties. Chris came to me and we were success buddies. He used to, every Friday we'd meet up and we'd hold each other to account. You know, what are you going to achieve? Have you done it? In the next week, have you done it? And he used to say, when I've done my next deal, I'm going to go and live in Thailand with the family. But the next deal never came because he just kept building houses, roads, blocks of flats and everything. He came to me in the July, I'll never forget it, in 2011, and he said, I've got a mole on my elbow. He said, but we don't have to worry because they're going to cut it out. They took his lymph glands and he's dead in 6 months. And I tell you this story because I want us all to recognise how short life is and how we need to make the most of every single day, because I was helping Chris write a book called How Cancer Saved My Life. And we didn't think he was going to go. He left a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I can remember on the last meal we had with Chris, by now he's in a wheelchair, and everybody's all sorry for him. He said, don't feel sorry for me. He said, I know how long I've got. He said, you don't. So I actually encourage people to live your life. Don't let this take your life over. This is something to bolt on to what you're doing. Grasp every opportunity. There were people on the Titanic who waved the sweet trolley away. Don't wave the sweet trolley away. All right? You would regret that, wouldn't you, if you're in that, you know, oh my God, that Black Forest Ghetto, I could have just done with that now. But I think you need these things to happen to you, because I made a decision. Harry, my youngest son, became 18 at that time, and he went off to university. Now, and he had a gap year. All of my 3 grown-up children had gap years. I'm a baby boomer, right? So I didn't know what a gap year was. I never had a gap year. I never went to university, just straight into work from school. And I said to Tina, my partner at the time, I said, look, I stand in front of the room, I coach people, I say, get a better life, I say, live for now, do all of this. I've got to be authentic. I can't do it anymore. And I ask myself a coaching question each year. If I only had 12 months, would I do what I'm doing now? And the answer came back. And I ask it every year, and it's never come back that answer again. But it came back, it said, no, you've got to go off travelling. You've got to go off and have your gap year. So we rented out the house, utility warehouse. With the money we earned, we had a motorhome, still got the motorhome, loved the motorhome. And we went off travelling around the world in the motorhome. Right? There's one thing with a motorhome though. When you live in a motorhome and you've got no TV and it's raining outside, things happen. Tina became pregnant, so that's why I've got I've got an 11-year-old daughter and a 35-year-old daughter. So I've got a great reason to keep doing it. But that was an opportunity that I had. And I don't think people understand the stress you're under till you're under no stress at all. Because when you go on a normal holiday, even if it's 4 weeks long, you're still winding down, and then you've just wound down, and then you wind back up again. When you've just got that complete freedom, and Tina never thought she could have a child, she'd had miscarriages, that's all she ever wanted was to have a child. I think when you can be completely stress-free, so I think one of the gifts that this business has given to me is that stress-free lifestyle. And one thing, and I will tell you, the other thing, Karen and I, when you get to a certain point in your life, and I'm telling you this to emphasise how powerful this business is. It can give you what you want and what you're prepared to work for. We set up a charity 8 years ago. Does anybody know the Buddy Bag Foundation? Now, I've done a lot of charity work, but there's a charitable overhead with a lot of charities where the CEO gets paid and these other people get paid. We wanted to set up a charity where 100% of every donation goes to the cause, and that we could make an impact in this world. And we created the Buddy Bag Foundation because, believe it or not, 48,000 children every single year have to escape domestic violence, and they end up in emergency care with just the clothes they're standing up in. And what we do is we provide them with a rucksack with 12 essential items in it. We do it for 6 different age groups, boys and girls, and we call it a bag of love, so that when they enter refuge, which is warm, it's cosy, there's wonderful support workers, they've got something to call their own. And if it wasn't for this business, and Karen is the CEO, we've helped now 65,000 children. We supply over 300 women's refuges around the UK. And we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have that time freedom that this business offers. All right? So, when I say it changes lives, I genuinely mean it changes lives. And all I would say to you, we have a duty of care to share. And, you know, we've had some great points from Lorna, and I hope, you know, I can inspire you to just talk to more people about this opportunity that we've got. Share it. You don't know what's happening behind somebody's closed doors. You have no idea. People are in the shit. We have a solution. But Big Al, I read his latest book. Remember the difference between wants and needs. Everybody in the UK needs this, but they don't want it. Don't get disheartened. I heard the Slimmers World thing. You know, everybody, how many people have you met that want, you know, they need to lose weight? They go, I need to lose weight. Has anybody said that to you? We know what to do. You know what to do. We're not lacking information, but we've got to have that burning desire. We want to do it. And again, Lorna said, having that vision, knowing why you're doing the business is one of the most important things. Because this business, as far as I'm concerned, is your vehicle to help you get what you want out of life. Oscar Wilde once said, I can help anybody get what they want out of life. The challenge is most people don't know what they want out of life. So, you know, again, top tip, find out what you want out of life. I'm running the goal setting workshops online. So I've not been doing them online. I've only been doing face-to-face. So just to back up the training, I did one this week. We're going to be doing every month. I'm going to change them about a bit. They're going to be really exciting. An hour online about setting your goals for your utility warehouse business. So that's me.